Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back into your Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Evan Kamiko. Thanks for joining us today. And Kevin, Arkansas men's basketball season finally comes to a close in Nashville. The Hogs beat Vanderbilt in round one, but couldn't get past South Carolina in the second round, losing on Thursday. Just overall, what's your takeaways from that Nashville trip?
Merciful ending to a really bad season. It was a historically bad season, Evan.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time in 14 years that Arkansas will finish its season. Final overall record being under 500, 16 and 17. The 6 and 12 run in SEC regular season play was the worst conference mark in 15 years. So both of those precedents, when I talk about worst overall in 14 years, worst SEC record in 15 years, you have to go back to the woeful John Pelphrey era to understand how historically bad this was. When you drill it down and look at what Arkansas was able to do or not able to do throughout the season, historically bad season from the global look we just talked about. But when you drill it down, record 32-point loss at home to Auburn to open up SEC play. And we knew it was a team that was struggling coming out of non-conference. 9-4 in non-conference play, the most losses ever under Eric Musselman at Arkansas. When you look at non-conference play, this is the worst league mark, obviously, under Muss. If you have to go back 15 years to the Pelphrey era, and then you look at some of the historically bad losses. I talked about the 32-point defeat. That was 500 plus games at Bud Walton Arena, 30-year history. The worst margin of defeat for the Hogs. 29-point home loss to Tennessee, the SEC regular season champion. A lot more 20-plus point losses in league play. And though Arkansas started playing a little better and closed down on some of those margins, you still only went 6 and 7, including the SEC tournament, after starting 1 and 6, which also, by the way, was the worst league start at Arkansas through the first 7 games, going back to 15 years ago to that Pelphrey 08-09 team. But even though the margins got closer, Arkansas never beat a good team. The Razorbacks finished 0-8 against SEC teams that had winning records in league play during the regular season. Now A&M made a run in the SEC tournament, and so that changes the math a little bit there. When you look at it past, and Arkansas did sweep the Aggies, but when you look back on this season, I mean, this is an A&M team that was on the bubble coming in the SEC tournament. You look back on the season, Arkansas had one quality win. That was in November in the first ever ACC SEC challenge, beating a top 10 ranked Duke team that's been proven to be a really good team all year, ranked top 10 or around it most of the year, and it'll be one of the top seeds. When you look at the 3, maybe 4 at worst when the selection Sunday plays out. But that was Arkansas's only quality win. And those are just records and numbers. We could talk defense. We could talk offense. There were times where Arkansas would show a little improvement here, a little improvement there. Hustle plays, offensive rebounding, steals, deflections, 50-50 balls, shooting, 3-point defense. We could talk about all of that, and it was really, really bad in every aspect of the game at some point in the season, and usually for stretches. So this team never found an identity like previous Eric Musselman teams, coach teams at Arkansas that went to back-to-back Elite Eights followed by a Sweet 16 last year. And the truth of the matter is, Arkansas in its last 56 games, 27 and 29, that takes you all the way back to the start of SEC play a season ago. Arkansas has been underwater 2 back-to-back years in league play. The Hogs did have that incredible Sweet 16 run last year, but that 27 and 29 record includes those wins. That record resume as well. So, you can look at this multiple ways. Eric Musselman has done a great job at Arkansas. When we start talking about on the court and off the court stuff outside of all of these things, players coming and going, players staying back to take care of academics, Devo Davis leaving the team for a second consecutive season, and then coming back again, and other stuff going on. And then you looked on the court, Arkansas had so many games where there's technical fouls or flagrant ones or a lot of reviews in game of, it happens. It's not just Arkansas, but Arkansas seems to have a lot of that. So when I look at this season, I start from the top. I think it starts from the top, Evan, and goes all the way down. I don't think this was Eric Musselman's best coaching job. It's probably his worst since being a high major or Division I head coach, not just high major, because he was at Nevada, we know, for 4 years and have great success there. This is his worst season, but I also have concerns when I look back on Arkansas's competitiveness in league play a year ago, finishing 8 and 10 in 10th place. because you look at the two previous seasons. Yes, Arkansas made a Sweet 16 last year, but the two previous seasons, it wasn't just hot tournament runs to get to back-to-back Elite Eights. Arkansas finished second and fourth in league play and got that double bye. So the program was strong throughout the season. Non-conference, slow starts in SEC play, but got it turned around for top of the league finishes in a very strong league, and then those great in-play tournament runs. It's not been trending, or it has not only not leveled off, but it's been trending down.
And Kevin, I think it's a little ironic that they ended up losing to South Carolina in the SEC tournament. I remember a couple of weeks ago when we're covering that South Carolina game, and one of the things that was said after the game by Muss was that South Carolina is a connected team. They play together. In Arkansas, we never really saw that throughout the year. There were moments where you can see that connectivity kind of come together in some of those wins, like the Texas A&M win, like being able to beat, Missouri and LSU late in the season. But overall, the team was never connected. And again, you say it starts from the top down. And that's what happens when you get a team like this, where you get guys out of the portal, guys from different backgrounds, guys from these, mid-major teams trying to make that jump to the SEC. They have to connect and blend together. And we never really saw that. And that really, sparked in that South Carolina first game. And then again, the irony of just going down again to a connected South Carolina team who's going to be, a top 5-6 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, South Carolina came into Bud Walton and won by 13. It was almost a mirror image. It was a game where Carolina led by 19 or 20 in the second half. Arkansas had a run, got it down to a 2 or 3 possession game, and then Carolina just executed and continued to execute. And you see Arkansas for pockets or spells have nice runs or play for a few stretches solid basketball. Can't maintain it, and against good teams find ways to outmatch or out strategize or out execute down the stretch of games. And this Arkansas team was the opposite. I mean, even against Vandy in the first round, a team that beat Arkansas and Bud Walton a couple of weeks prior, Arkansas was down by 15 points in the second half. We're talking about a team below, not 10 wins on the overall record, only 4 conference wins, but did have one of those 4 at Bud Walton Arena not that long ago. The Hogs come all the way back. So you knew Arkansas was capable of having long stretches of sustained success. The Hogs actually build an 8-point lead and then kind of cave at the end. It goes overtime. Now, credit to Arkansas, credit to Eric Musselman for finding a way in OT to pull out a win and survive and advance that Wednesday game. But at the same time, when you played good teams, the cream rises to the top, they say, and you could see just the difference of the connectivity, like you talked about, execution, strategy. That comes from the bench. That comes from your coach. And then your players buying in and understanding how to carry out those orders. Arkansas didn't have that all year, and Arkansas wasn't devoid of talent. We know there's no void of talent in Fayetteville. People can speculate or debate that, but I think it was there because I think you can go all the way back to the Purdue win in overtime in the exhibition season in a packed house where everybody was going full force trying to win that game. The Hogs get to overtime. Arkansas was the better team that day, better than Duke. And then there were moments, but this team was just never the kind of team that could sustain success. And when it played good teams, in SEC play, when it played good teams, it was over.
And Kevin, now we turn to a very interesting offseason here in Fayetteville. Maybe one with a lot more questions than most Hog fans are really used to. The biggest one being what's going to happen with Eric Musselman and his future here in Fayetteville. We've already kind of heard, rumblings that he's maybe connected to, Minnesota, Louisville, potentially an out west team. What are you hearing on Eric Musselman and where the head Hog kind of goes forward from here?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we focused a lot about in this segment already what's been wrong this season. And then I kind of took it back to last year because I think you have to pay attention to that. Those are facts. This part's subjective that you're asking about is my opinion. And some of that's based on source information. But my opinion is the body of work of what Eric Musselman has done, he should be on no hot seat. This is one of the top coaches in college basketball. He's proven that. He should be on no hot seat. You look at the full body of work, and I think that what's been out there for a while is what sources have been telling me for months. I sat on it for a while. I started reporting in the last several weeks that Musselman's been looking elsewhere. He's got feelers out. I've talked about the fact that sometimes those are leverage plays, but the way I've been getting this, it's more than just that. It could play out that those things work in a leverage situation if Muss doesn't have options that he prefers that he can leave. So it might work out that way. And I've said repeatedly, there will be no messaging from any party in the University of Arkansas system, in the athletic department or anywhere, not from us or anybody. If he stays, the talk's going to be all the rest of this was nonsense. I'm just saying it's not based on valuable source information I've got. It's multiple. It's been going on for quite a while. It's been consistent. And I've really dug into it to make sure that I wasn't just getting some kind of circular information from one talking point. And so I believe I still have said, and this is selection Sunday. Tomorrow the portal opens. A lot of things start to shake out. NIL is going to not only play a big part in recruiting high school and portal, but it also moving forward. If you have a coaching change, or any teams that are going through the coaching carousel, that's also going to be a factor in who you can bring in or maybe who you can retain. And so that's been a little problematic at Arkansas too, based on source information for a while, the NIL part of it. So that could be also be a factor. So I'm going to say it again. I'm a slight lean because I've heard for quite a while that Muss has been putting out feelers for quite a while and has genuine interest in moving on, that he'll do that because I think his track record is good enough to possibly give him an opportunity to take something that he's willing to take. Again, he's on no hot seat. There's no pressure to run, and he shouldn't be on a hot seat. Mm-hmm. This is just me talking about how I'm trying to read it, because I don't have any idea if he's going to be back or not. A slight lean means I'm just a little better than 50-50 that he probably wouldn't be back if the right opportunity is there for him. Now, he very well may be back. And that's obviously something that's on the table. He could get raised to stay. I don't know how interested Arkansas is in being in a coaching search again. That's a possibility, even coming off a bad year. But I also think this season didn't go as Musselman planned. It's not how he recruited, thinking this was going to be a successful year. Arkansas came in national top 15, top 3 projected SEC. And so I also think that the kind of season he's had will impact maybe what some of these job openings would, where he would be in a pecking order on a big board. I think it can impact that in such a way that keeps me a slight lean only that he'd leave, because I'm not sure that some of the jobs he thought might be available to him would still be available after the season Arkansas's had. And I think you have to look a little bit beyond just the record again this year. I throw in some of last year, some of the off-court stuff. I don't know how much that will impact him on the open market, but there'll be a ton of programs that would want him. I don't know that he would want to move on to a ton of programs. I think it would be a select few. He's one of the best, highest paid coaches in the country where he is now. If he isn't raised up, we also need to keep an eye on, does Arkansas's NIL get better? Sources have told me for a while that it's only better than Vanderbilt in the SEC. So if that's true, that's a problem. That can lead to problems in your coaching retention, player recruiting, all of those things. So it's not just about the coach. But having said all that, some of the school names you've mentioned are in the wheelhouse of some of the things I've heard. I haven't gone up public about that. I haven't talked about that. I haven't disclosed that because my sources have asked me not to, even though some of that's already out there. And I tell them, look, this is already out there. You're kind of covered by that. Mm-hmm. Nope, stick to what we've said you can talk about that came from us. I'm going to go ahead and say now, because I've had a green light, Louisville is the primary position that Musselman, through third parties or feelers, whatever, initially that was out there, that there would be strong interest in that. That's how it's been told to me. Gary Parrish, everybody knows who that is. Been part of that CBS college basketball package. Actually talked about that just a couple of days ago on a podcast. He even said he's been hearing it for months and didn't just now start talking about it. It's been out there for a while. There are not only journalists, but coaches on the college level, assistant coaches. And you have to be really careful when you're getting different source information, getting it from shoe companies, wherever, to understand that there might be people floating stuff for an agenda. You never know when an agent wants stuff out there for leverage. I've gotten it from enough places and from enough credible places that I know to be credible to believe it's not just about leverage. It could work out that way. I think he's had real interest in pursuing other options. And now I'm out on the record with Louisville as being the primary one. And we'll see what happens there. I've heard multiple things on the Cardinals' interest in something like that. I'm not going to go there today. Maybe down the line here soon. We'll see what happens with Musk. We could hear any minute now, today, tomorrow, that he's signed some extension, that he's getting a raise, anything. I'm not predicting that Eric Musselman's leaving. I'm only a slight lean that he would if that right opportunity's there. And so I still am a slight lean because I think he might have just a good enough resume despite this year to attract something he wants. But I don't know that. I
Yeah,
don't know
only
that.
all those questions, will be revealed in time of what the future is from us. But as for this team right now, you look at the roster, three guys, and we'll end it here, Kevin. Denijay Harris, Keon Manyfield, and Joseph Pinion have all already entered their names in the transfer portal. Based off, again, your opinion and what you're hearing, do we expect more guys from this roster to go into the portal and potentially, see a complete overhaul of this roster? Should Muss stay or should Muss leave?
Yeah, I mean, I think players are going to get in the portal. Look, again, we've talked about this. Until this year, Musselman's done. He's been better than any coach in the SEC when you look at postseason. We talked about how well Arkansas finished in league play in 2 of those last 3 seasons. And so usually when you're looking at Arkansas in the portal, Arkansas's lost players to the pro level. But when it's come down to the portal, usually it's a mutual parting of ways, and Musselman's done a great job of figuring out what he needs and who he needs to go move on because they're not going to play to create space for new players. That'll, as long as he's Arkansas's coach, I don't see it changing a whole lot. Only 2 high school players signed in the early period, and as long as he's at Arkansas, I think they're going to operate the same way. You're seeing players now. Keon Minifield's a little bit interesting because he missed the first 10 games. He had some good games in there. He wasn't part of what Arkansas, what the Razorbacks' plans were at the end of the season. And so him entering the portal is not a surprise necessarily, but at the same time, I think there are other ones that are less surprising. Joseph Pinion, that was coming. That was fully expected. Denijay Harris, he'll need a waiver. He'll need to get an NCAA waiver, hardship waiver, because he did start out in JUCO, and I think he had an injury season and only played a few games back in JUCO. So I don't know how that'll shake out for him. But it seems like everybody now is getting waivers, and so good luck to him, a young man that worked his butt off. In fact, all these players do. Let's remember that players work hard and they're trying to get playing time. So you can't. But I don't think this is unusual. I don't think this is unusual at all. And I think we're going to see more in the portal. I think we're likely to see Hogs move on for pro opportunities. But I think it's probably a little more interesting than ever based on the kind of season and result Arkansas had. I think that's what makes it interesting. So we'll see moving forward. But as soon as tomorrow, when the portal officially opens for everybody, only a few players have been able to get in so far for exception reasons in the bylaws. But tomorrow is when it really opens up for everybody. So we're going to see a ton of names. We're going to see a lot of Arkansas contacted such and such, and we'll see what happens.
Kevin, let's wrap up really quickly. A fun question because the bracket's going to be released a little bit later after we record this segment. So question to you, who do you got winning the whole thing?
Man. It's a great question. I think UConn's one of those teams that was just so dominant last year. And I don't know that UConn can make another run by that, but I do like UConn as a potential Final Four runner. I think you keep an eye on North Carolina, obviously. Some of these are obvious answers, but that's how it works. I mean, and then out of the SEC, I'm just not really sure. There's going to be 8 teams in. It's a strong season again for the league. More than half the league teams in. Tennessee's a favorite, one of those darlings for, maybe making a run. I don't know. Rick Barnes, as great a job as he's done, they really haven't made runs under him like that. We'll see if they're able to this year. This Auburn team can be really, really good. Can be really, really good. I don't know if Kentucky defensively, the talent's there to make a run. I don't know if defensively that team in certain matchups, so it's hard to say that. I don't know that there's an SEC team I really think can win it all. If I had to pick one, not just because Auburn won the SEC tournament, just a veteran crew, can be versatile in how they play. They really get after it. The one team I like also still is South Carolina. I don't know how far South Carolina can go, but we know Frank Martin led that program not that long ago, a few years back when Mike Anderson was here, to its first ever Final Four. I'm not sure that team with the right matchups couldn't find a pathway. And I'm, obviously outside of those teams, Alabama, I'd compare a little bit to Kentucky. I'm not sure they're good enough defensively to predict any Final Four runs, but none of those teams would shock me that I mentioned making a run.
I think, too, we look at the Big 12 as well. There's a lot of teams in there that can make a run, and Iowa State won that tournament. On top of that, Baylor's up there. Houston, number 1 team in the country, probably will be a 1 seed. So I wouldn't sleep on the Big 12. I will sleep on the Big 10. Purdue, I cannot wait till they lose early on, it will make my year as an
You're
Indiana
an Indiana
fan.
guy, man. You're an Indiana guy. If it's not the Hoosiers, you got to hate on everybody else. I get it.
I just gotta hate on Purdue because it's custom. But Kevin, that's gonna do it for your Hog Hoops report this week. Thank you so much for joining us. For Kevin McPherson, I'm Evan Kamiko. Enjoy bracket week, everybody. May the best bracket win. Kevin, thanks as always. We'll see you next week.